Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Not for Time podcast. I'm Sean Woodland.
I'm John Woolley.
John, how you doing, man?
I'm good. A little tired. Legs are beat up from training this week and a little sleepy, but otherwise, I think I'm going to be okay.
Man, I got beat up this week, and I had an experience yesterday. Yeah, we did this like interval workout. It was like 3-4 minute rounds of you did 30 double unders, 5 thrusters, and then you ran 100 meters, right? And then you picked up right where you left off after a minute rest. And there's a guy who's been in the 5 a.m. a couple times that I don't really recognize. It's new in the gym, younger guy. He's probably in his 30s. Looks the part, looks like a pretty solid CrossFitter. And after the workout's over, and you're doing the posts, kind of trash talking and this and that. I don't know how it came up, but it was something like I said something about like Masters RX. I got a Masters RX that one. Someone said, I can't remember what it was. Anyway, it came out that I was like 51 years old, and so I go in and I'm putting my stuff away, and that guy comes up to me. He goes, "Hey man, I know it's none of my business, but did I hear you say you're 50?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm 51." He's like, "Oh man, that's amazing. I hope I can be like you when I come in. That's awesome." I'm like, now I am that guy. Like now I am the guy that, oh, look at him. He's really giving it his all. I hope I can be, bless his little heart. He's out here like trying to keep up with all these younger dudes. I hope I can be like him one day. And I was like, well, I guess it's come to that now.
That's a rough phrase to hear the first time. I've heard it so many times, and every time they're like, "Oh, I just hope when I'm your age." That's the phrase. I hope when I'm your age, I look or feel like you do. And I'm just, every time I hear it, I know it's a compliment, and I take it that way every time it's said, but it still hurts.
I know.
It still hurts.
Just reality setting in. So anyway. Yeah. Okay, well, today we are speaking with Rob Kearney, who is a former professional strongman competitor. He is a former North America's Strongest Man, won that in 2017. He, at one point, set the American record in the log press at 475 pounds. He's competed at the World's Strongest Man competition, the Arnold Strongman Classic, Giants Live. He is an affiliate owner now, CrossFit Iron Legacy, and he is just a genuinely great human being. So we talked to Rob about his strongman career, how he found it, what motivated him to open a CrossFit gym with his husband, Joey. And he talked a lot about his decision and the consequences, both positive and negative, of deciding to come out publicly in 2014. So here's our conversation with Rob Kearney. Rob, thanks so much for joining us today, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I will say I did skip my gym's weekly glutes and core class for this podcast. So if the ass is looking a little flat, I may or may not blame it on YouTube.
You know that we rank slightly above glutes and core on whatever that, I don't know what else is in there, but we're above that. So we have that going for us, which is nice. But yes, I guess this is where we'll start. You are an affiliate owner. And I don't know many people who have gone from strongman to CrossFit and not only made that transition, but also owned an affiliate. So what motivated that pathway?
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is like I found strongman through CrossFit back in 2009. So I've been in the CrossFit space for, nearly 2 decades at this point. And, throughout my entire career, whenever I was training, if I was visiting new places, I always knew like a CrossFit gym was a place I could go and drop in and do the things I needed to get done while I was competing. And as I knew I was coming to the end of my competitive career in 2023, I kind of like figured, okay, 2024 is probably going to be my last year competing and pivoting to see what else I could do that's going to keep my love for fitness alive. And my husband and I had a long chat about what we were going to do, what was going to make us happy. And we kind of landed on deciding to open a gym. So January 1st of 2024, we opened CrossFit Iron Legacy. And, here we are over a year and a half later, and I'm still there 7 days a week. And, it's been a blast. It's certainly had its moments that are stressful. But, then I get to wake up on a Saturday and I go coach a partner workout with over 30 people at the gym in the morning. And it's hard to be mad or, in a bad mood when you show up to a gym and there's a bunch of people showing up to throw down on a workout.
I love that for you guys, Rob. I remember we chatted when you originally opened it and you were really excited about getting a chance to build the community. What's your community turned into over that year and a half?
We are a place that we have every walk of life in that gym, which is the coolest thing. And our main goal is we tell everybody we want people who want to be here. So we're a small affiliate. It is certainly a passion project of mine and Joey's. We're not trying to like bust the doors down and get every single person to come through our door. A year and a half in, I think we're just over 80 members. So it's solid. But the community that we have is so great because we do lean heavily into the LGBTQIA plus space, and people who identify as women. That's really where a lot of our focus is, and just naturally what has come about. But it's just such a fun spot to be. I mean, I think for me, having people that we as coaches are able to meet them where they are, they can look at that workout that we have programmed for that day. And I mean, I have some members that just straight up look at me. They're like, yep, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, great, you're here. Let's figure something else out. As long as we can get the same kind of stimulus in the workout, I don't really care. I want you to keep showing up every day. And that's really what we've built. And people love it. We're not a hyper competitive gym. We are all about our people showing up 3 to 5 days a week, getting a great workout, supporting each other. And it's fun. Like last Sunday, we do an endurance class on Sundays, and we all decided to go bowling afterwards, and just have a group together that just likes to hang out, get our ass kicked in a tough workout, but fist bump afterwards.
What do you know about owning a gym now that you didn't know when you first started?
You have to buy a lot of toilet paper.
For real.
I think for me, it's a lot of the back end logistical stuff that, it's, one thing we really pride ourselves on is like how clean our gym is. It's something that people who drop in to our affiliate notice right away. New people see that right away. It's like we clean the bars after every workout. We mop the gym 3 times a day. We're cleaning the chalk off the pull-up bars in the rig. The rowers and the bikes get wiped down every single day. So all of that stuff that we stay on top of. My kind of mindset is a clean gym won't sell somebody on a membership, but a dirty gym will turn somebody away. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where our head has been at. So keeping up on top of all that stuff definitely gets a little bit stressful from time to time, especially with me still having a full-time career outside of owning an affiliate.
Yeah. To just reinforce your belief that just the general public are just slobs at this point.
Consistently.
Right.
We also share our space with a baseball training facility that really they lend themselves to that middle high school age group of kids.
Oh my God. Oh, yeah.
So like we share restrooms with that space, and man, it is I'm just gonna say it's interesting the things I walk into at 4:30 in the morning sometimes.
Oh, I can imagine. Right. I've seen it all at this point. I think when you're in an affiliate a lot, 6 or more days a week like you are, you really start to understand that people often just leave their manners at home and just do really, really gross. And that's where gyms start putting up signs in the bathrooms, like weird
really
stuff.
just sign up for that? Like people don't know. All right.
I don't know how I find underwear on the floor or like or a shoe, not both, just one. I'm just like, where the hell or what are we doing? But to me, it's like the things I can like sit back at the end of the night and like kind of just have a giggle about, because I'm like, what, at the end of the day, like I know what we're doing is genuinely good. I know the community we have loves to be there and supports each other. So if I have to pick up a pair of dirty underwear every once in a while, it's worth it.
Are you offering only CrossFit programming, or are you doing more than that?
So we predominantly do CrossFit programming. We have a couple of personal trainers that work out of our space as well. And then on Sundays, we do like a Hyrox esque class, where it is a 75 to 90 minute class of an endurance session. I've begrudgingly been doing it.
No, you're a runner now. You did a Hyrox. So you're a runner now.
Shut your mouth, John.
How dare you, sir?
So like that's really where we're at, and I will say, like, because again, with Joey and I both having full-time jobs outside of the affiliate, we're not an affiliate that's running programming throughout the day. We have our class times that are pretty full. People like the schedule that we offer. And we've kind of found a sweet spot in that.
What in God's name possessed you to do a Hyrox?
Do you want the real story or the fake story?
I want well, both. Give me the fake one.
Both.
Give me the real one.
So the fake one was, oh, this is going to be a great experience for me and Joey to train together for something.
Okay.
The real story was I was stoned on the couch eating cookies one night, saw that they were doing a Hyrox in New York and they had signups available. So I decided to sign myself and Joey up.
Oh, man. Amazing. At what point did then the reality set you? Wait, I did what? I can't.
It was probably like 2 weeks into the training where, I realized I'm going from a 280-pound strongman to having to run over 8K and do all these stations in between. So it was definitely a lot. It was a great learning experience, and I will never do one again.
You're probably the only person not complaining about the sled push, though. You got that going for you.
John, I would have stayed there for 3 hours. Even the arm over arm, I'm just like, all right, baby, here we go. This is the active rest. Come on, give the legs a little bit of a recovery here. Yeah, I mean, I would have stayed on those sleds all day. It was just getting the legs moving after each session to consider. I mean, I don't know. They say it's a run. I use that term loosely with what I was doing at the Hyrox.
Yeah, you were moving from point A to point B,
trotting, shuffling, complaining.
Yes. Man, I would have been right there with you. But objectively, though, when it was all said and done, now, regardless of how you felt about all the running and the experience overall about the event and like what you saw there, what were your impressions?
Oh, it was so cool. I mean, we got to do New York Hyrox, right? Which is an iconic event that Hyrox runs. It's outdoor on the pier. The vibes were amazing. The music was great. The atmosphere is so cool. And I think Hyrox is just so awesome because you see all the different walks of life that are out there doing it. Like I was in a heat that was right after, like we started 10 minutes after one of the pro men's heats. I'm like, cool. I can't wait to see how many guys I get lapped by. But then like you have your everyday people that are just out there doing it because they're like, well, I know I can run a little bit and figure this out. And it was a really fun event. We finished in right around an hour and a half, and my goal was 1:45. So we beat that by 15 minutes because I had really no idea what the expectations were going to be. But it was a fun event, just not fun enough for me to want to do it again.
You feel that much running into anything.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is.
You know what's fun about those heats coming behind you? Like I had couples coming behind me, and it's the worst, dude. You get to a station and, because one person is resting and the other's working, they're just blowing past you. And it's even worse because the women in Hyrox, for whatever reason, they all have to dress alike. So you're not only getting passed by one 5'2" woman wearing a pink sports bra and pink shorts, but then there's a second one coming right behind her. And then you feel terrible about it. It's fun though.
Just reinforcing everything.
Yeah.
Someone give me a barbell and get me the hell out of here.
Exactly.
Well, let's go back to you finding Strongman in 2009. So first of all, how'd you get into a CrossFit gym? That's the first part of the question. And the second part is then what was it like? How did you then make the move over into what was a very successful strongman career?
So when I was in high school, I was, senior year, 2009, was working out in my high school gym. And as I was kind of just doing my own thing, because it was the spring of that year, my football career was over. So I just enjoyed working out at that point. So there was actually a substitute teacher who was in the PE class that day, saw me working out and was like, oh, looks like you like this. You seem pretty strong. I'm a coach at this place called, it's a CrossFit gym. Let me talk to the owner, see if maybe you can come by and start working out. So I started I would go to the 5 a.m. class. So I'd be able to go before school. And my second day in the gym, the workout of the day was the CrossFit total. And I broke the gym's deadlift record at 17 years old. I deadlifted 506, and the gym owner said, all right, you're not going to do CrossFit. And so the following week, this was late May, early June, I had walked in on a Tuesday morning and they were like, hey, we found this strongman competition right down the road here this coming weekend. We signed you up for it. So clear your schedule for Saturday. I was like, cool. Saturday's perfect. It's the day after senior prom. I won't feel tired at all. So I went to this contest. I had the only experience of strongman I had was seeing World's Strongest Man on TV. I went there. I was the youngest athlete by at least 10 years, got my ass completely handed to me, and fell in love with the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went to Springfield College to get a degree in athletic training, and they had a powerlifting team at the school. So I joined that, competed in powerlifting for a few years, but I missed the athleticism of what I found in strongman because I was doing that a little bit more. And that's when I really decided to jump full into competing in strongman and seeing how I could do in the sport. Because to be totally honest, I sucked when I started. I tell this because a lot of people look at the back end of my career, seeing me at the Arnold, the Rogue Invitational, World's Strongest Man, and things like that, not realizing when I started the sport, I took dead last in my first 8 competitions, and really had this slow trajectory to getting to be successful and to where I got in the sport. So it was a long road to where I started to where I finished, but it was certainly honestly, it was the most amazing time of my life.
I love the fact you started this with someone drug you to the gym, because I think that's how most of us found it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always interesting to me to see someone who's a world-class athlete like yourself also got dragged to the gym.
Yeah. And that's the coolest thing, like I had never heard of CrossFit before I stepped into the gym there. It was the name of the affiliate was Southeastern Connecticut CrossFit in Baltic, Connecticut, in this old warehouse. Pretty sure the gym was about 400 square feet, and there was rusty pipes coming from the ceiling that we used as pull-up bars. And it was just, to me, like it was the real life version of what like you would see on the West Side documentaries, and it was this like grungy, just hard work, dirty kind of gym that people just like cranked some heavy metal and got after it. And that, to me, was so exciting. It was awesome to just see all these people just coming in and getting their teeth kicked in every single day for these workouts, but coming back for more. So it was great for me because that's where I was able to really see what proper training would do for you, and what kind of career could lead me on.
And you mentioned sorry, go ahead, John.
Well, I just say, any lessons you learned from that, this kind of early journey where you get drug into the gym and you fall in love with it, and you're seeing what these owners are doing, and now you're in the opposite position. You're owning the gym now and dragging people. And any lessons you learned from this that you're carrying over into your current affiliate?
I think for me, it's all about meeting people where they're at. Understanding what everybody in that class and in your gym and what every member that you have at your fingertips, what do they want out of the workout, right? Because I have one athlete who wants to throw down, and he wants me to scale everything up, make sure that he's getting the skill development that he needs because he enjoys being competitive. And then I have the other spectrum of the gym where, it is the mom who has a full-time job and 4 kids, and, 5 a.m. is the only time she can work out. So, maybe she's not looking or doesn't really care to learn the skills to develop a muscle up, and I have those conversations with everybody, and being able to, and I think for me, this is why our gym has been as successful as it is. Could it be more successful? For sure, if I had the time. But with where we're at right now, we found this great balance of our members are going to come in. They love the people that they're around. They love the music that we play. And it's all about just, I think, meeting people where they're at and making sure that you're giving them the workout experience that they want to keep them coming back.
So you mentioned that you finished dead last in your first 8 competitions. That would have been a deterrent for a lot of people at that point, being like, yeah, this might not be for me. But what kept you going through that experience?
I think the thing for me was I have this very student-centered mind about myself. And doing the first competition, I still remember the events. It was an axle clean and press, a farmer's carry up a hill. We had fingal fingers, an arm over arm drag. And there was only 4 events, but I remember being like, oh, these events are so cool. And then I signed up for another one, and it was 5 completely different events. And then the next one was another 5 completely different events. And I start realizing oh, every single one of these competitions is different. And so I think having that excitement to learn a new event and learn a new way of training every single time I signed up for a show was exciting to me, rather than a deterrent or something that would beat me down and make me not want to continue. For me, I set my bar super low when I started competing. My first goal in strongman was don't take last. Literally that simple. I didn't care about anything else. I was like, those guys can go have the podium. I don't care. Those guys can get PRs. I don't care. Just don't let me take last, right? Competition number 9, that's when it happened. And then, I set my goals on something else. I was like, okay, well, I didn't take last, but like, you know what? Every single competition I've been at, I've zeroed at least one event where like I haven't been able to get a single rep. All right, next goal, don't zero. And it just was like this slow, natural progression of building off of these small attainable goals that I knew I could hit to keep me motivated on that track to see what I could do with the sport.
Don't take last is also my philosophy.
Yeah,
every day I show up in the gym. I have a kind of a 2-part question around this competition piece for you, Rob. First, you haven't been retired that long. Do you miss it? And, kind of the follow-up to that question is, do you miss the eating required to do strongman?
No and no. So it's funny because, when I announced my retirement, it was in April of 2024, before the World's Strongest Man competition in May. I had been battling, pretty much since 2020, I was going through a lot of stuff, like I tore my tricep in 2020, 2021, I got cancer, hurt my back in 2023. So it was like this culmination of all these things that I started to honestly lose the love for what it takes to be that competitive in the sport. And then you see all these younger athletes coming up and pushing that bar even more. And I had to have a really honest conversation with myself and be like, are you still willing to do this every single day? Because even if there's a slight indication that answer is no, I needed to step away. I gave 15 years of my life to competing in this sport and never, ever imagined that I would have gotten to the level that I did. So I had to be really honest with myself and be really grateful for the things that I did and the places that I got to see and the people I got to meet. But also out of respect for the sport, I didn't want to be that one person that was hanging around and getting the invites just because. And to me, like that would eat me alive. Like I need to know that every competition I'm going to, I know I may not win, but I know I can be competitive. And if I can't be at that level, it's not worth the risk of injury or the time commitment to dedicate to that sport, So where I'm at now and, the training I get to do, and I get a different kind of satisfaction from exercise now. Before when I was training, it was like, all right, I'm dialed in. I'm working towards the next competition. I have to hit these benchmarks and I know how competitive I'll be at the show. And now it's like, all right, I'm going to work out 4 to 5 times a week at my gym with my members and I'm going to have a great time doing it. And, I still obviously am really involved with the sport and I keep up with everything that's going on. And when I was back at World's Strongest Man this past year in a different capacity, I looked at Joey. I was like, I am so happy I retired because seeing the things that these guys do is just amazing. And it's fun to be on the other side and be a true fan of the sport that I was a part of for so long again. I started as a fan and now I get to be on the back end of my career, really just being a fan of the sport, but at a different level because I know all these guys. I have relationships with all these athletes. So there's a deeper level of connection between me and the sport now. On the eating side of things, I will say my grocery bill is static. That I'm no longer eating like a strongman.
I can imagine.
What would a day of eating look like for you when you were training?
So, it was kind of contest dependent. If we're getting ready for something like the Arnold, I was in the 7,000 to 8,000 calorie range. And as you guys know, that's as one of the smaller athletes on the competition floor. For something like World's Strongest Man, would dial it back to maybe 6. So still a lot. For me, it was always like, okay, at World's Strongest Man, I want my body weight to be in that mid 280s. If I'm going to the Arnold or the Rogue, I need to be upwards of that 300 range just because of the static nature of those events being a little bit heavier. At some point, mass moves mass.
People think that's fun. It does not sound fun to me. Yeah, it does not sound fun. 6,000 calories is a ridiculous amount of food.
Yeah, and I think the thing is too is like you just being an athlete, it's like, yeah, I mean, 6,000 calories of shit is easy to eat, but you're not trying to eat like an asshole the whole time. Like you want to have moderately clean calories in order to be able to recover properly, to make sure that you're ready for the next training session. Because if you eat junk, you're just going to feel like junk.
You mentioned you got diagnosed with cancer back in 2021.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you? Because I mean, you hear that word associated with you, and I don't care what it is, that's probably going to put a shock through you. So how did you deal with that, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, it was really interesting. So I was coming off of my tricep tear in 2020, got the invite to compete back at World's Strongest Man in 2021. And so I was psyched up. My tricep rehab was going great. Start ramping up my training for Worlds. And it was after a pretty heavy squat and deadlift session that I got home that night and realized I had some groin pain, which, okay, I was just deadlifting in the 800s, squatting in the 700s, not surprising. But then as the night progressed, I noticed that the pain was actually like originating from my right testicle. So I was like, okay, so I hopped in the shower, do the self-assessment, and I noticed an abnormality, we'll say. I think, and I've always been open about talking this. That's why I don't feel taboo or cliche, but it's like, they always say, oh, feel for a lump when you're doing your assessment. The lump is the word that people get stuck on. And when I tell people what I felt like, what I describe it as, it was almost like a small, like 1 centimeter large, like piece of string. It was like this really hard little, like just thin band that I felt. So took that into consideration. I was like, okay, that's a little bit strange. Within the next couple of days, stayed up on the assessments and stuff like that, but I did notice that I was getting larger. So that's what kind of prompted me to initiate going to see a doctor. And fortunately I did take those steps when I did, because between the time of me finding the the nodule and to the time I had surgery was about 2.5 to 3 weeks. And with testicular cancer, they remove the testicle. It's called an orchiectomy. And when I got it removed, they said that I had 3 tumors on that testicle. The biggest was about the size of a quarter. So in that 3-week span, it was super aggressive, which super happy that I did recognize that there was something wrong and take those steps to go to the doctors to get it checked out and squared away. Because who knows, if I had waited and been a stubborn athlete like most people are, who knows what it could have progressed at. I'm lucky that we caught it. We got it out in time for it to be stage 1, which fortunately I didn't have to do any chemotherapy afterwards. I was able to just do a routine schedule of scans to make sure that there was nothing that metastasized. And fortunately it did not. I have 1 more scan next summer, and then I'll be officially cancer-free, so there's a 5-year time period where you're technically in remission, where they kind of keep an eye on everything to make sure nothing new pops up. But, it was a scary experience. Here I was at 29 years old and no family history of testicular cancer, and it just popped up for me.
Yeah, that is absolutely a frightening moment. I had a friend that passed away from that when I was in my early 20s, and kind of the same story. Like, you just in his case, he didn't do what you did. So this is kind of a public service announcement of.
Oh, John just muted himself.
Oh, did I? Sorry, I'm a rookie at this. No, you just mentioned I had a friend that died from this, and he made the mistake that you did not make, which is when he found it, he didn't get it checked quickly, and by the time he got checked, it was too late. And, it's just kind of a horrific moment for people. So I'm happy you found that quick. You probably were more mortified you were going to lose that mohawk potentially, though.
I mean, listen, even over a year after retiring, it's still there. It's hiding here underneath the hat right now.
You're like, look, doc, no chemo. I got this mohawk. I cannot lose this thing. No chemo.
That is ultimately why I stopped coloring the mohawk, because bleaching that thing 3 times to get it to take color, I was just accelerating male pattern baldness. So I was trying not to do that.
Dude,
no offense to the 2 bald gentlemen on the
No,
call.
none taken.
So you're on the channel for that. We can all talk from experience.
Exactly.
I'm the hair diversity hire for today.
Oh man. Well, so back in 2014, you decided that you were going to come out publicly. And I can't imagine what that must have been like to make that decision and then be like, okay, I'm going to do this, because that in the sport that you were in, this sort of, alpha male dominated profession, I'm guessing that had to be pretty nerve wracking for you. So why did you make that decision then?
It was and it wasn't. So I was in this weird space where, I actually, when I was in college, was in a relationship with a girl for a little while. Ended that relationship because I was starting to come to terms with who I was as an individual. And I ended up meeting Joey, my husband, pretty soon after that. It was September. Well, we met in August of 2014, and him and I started dating and seeing each other. I was a first-year graduate student. He had just finished undergrad. We're 22 years old. Neither of us had any expectations of a real relationship at the time. And after dating him for a few weeks, it was just, I was finally getting to understand like what happiness was and what true feelings for another individual were, romantically anyway. And so it was just one of those things. Is I still remember the day that I came out. It was October 20th, 2014. It was a Monday. I was working as a graduate assistant athletic trainer, and I had a drive home. And I just remember I got home and I just sat in my car and I just said, fuck it. I just needed to do this thing because, one, I liked this guy that I was seeing. He had been out since he was 17, so I didn't feel that it was fair for him to essentially still be in the closet because him and I were seeing each other. But another thing was, I just realized that my happiness mattered more than what other people thought about me. So I got to this point where I just didn't care what other people thought. If this was going to be the thing that ruined a friendship, so be it. Don't need you. Sayonara. I'm good. So I put this post together, and I remember I was going to see Joey at the time, and I remember walking in and I see him and I hand him my phone. I'm like, take a look at this. He reads it. He was like, listen, if this is what you want to do, go for it. But I want you to do it when it's the right time for you. And without another second to think, I just hit post. Typical millennial coming out in a Man Crush Monday post. But at the time, I really didn't know what it was going to do. For me, I'm like, all right, I'm gay. Here it is. Let's move on. And shortly after that, a friend of ours gave me a call, and he did some journalism on the side just as a freelancer. And he was like, do you realize what you just did? I was like, well, yeah, I just told everyone I'm gay. But he's like, no, like, you're the first gay strongman. And that's when it kind of hit me. I was like, oh, all right. I didn't think of it in the broader scale of what this could mean. So he asked if he could write a story about it. So I said, sure. So we sat on the phone for a little bit. He interviewed me. He put together this beautiful piece and posted it the next day. And that's when, kind of the downhill effect of all this really started happening. And more news outlets started picking everything up. And, then we're getting interview requests. And I tell you what, if you really want to put a relationship on the spotlight within 6 weeks, just come out as gay. And within a few days, here we are. TMZ is asking to interview us. BuzzFeed is doing articles. The Advocate, Perez Hilton's tweeting about us. I was even mentioned on Conan that night. I mean, it really exploded into this thing that we didn't expect to. And I didn't really realize it would become, because here I am just saying, hey, this is me. And again, not realizing the global scale of the effect of me just saying those simple words would have.
You know, you mentioned at the top of that you were dating a woman prior to meeting Joey, and this is a true story. I'm not making this up. But when I was in high school, the first girl I dated for, through a summer or something, and then a couple of years later, I heard from my friends that she was gay. She'd come out, and I thought my whole life, I'm like, did I cause that? Was that me? So did you circle back to this woman and tell her, hey, look, I was already gay?
Listen, it's funny because obviously, like when the relationship ended, things were a little bit rocky, but she actually became a pretty successful strongwoman competitor now,
Awesome.
and is engaged to a good buddy of mine who we trained together for a long time. So, yeah, it's just funny how the full circle moment comes back around.
I love that.
When you're getting all this attention, I'm sure you're getting people reaching out to you, both positively and negatively, but I want to focus on the positive. What kind of things were people saying to you in support after you made that decision?
It's funny. There's different levels to this answer. Mm-hmm. Some as superficial as, the congratulations, diving deeper into, I think, the really cool moments for me were when I saw, posts go up about it, and obviously there were negative comments, but I would never have to defend myself. It was other strongman competitors coming out of the woodwork to support me, and seeing guys like Terry Hollins, have my back, on social media, and at that time, this guy I never met, still have that support was unbelievable. And then it rolls deeper into getting messages from parents of LGBTQ plus kids who, were scared for their kids' future, as I think any parent is, regardless of their sexual orientation. But, when you have a child that is a part of the LGBTQIA plus community, there's innate fear around that, around what is their life going to look like? Are they going to find happiness? Are they going to be bullied? And, getting those messages from parents were immensely profound, because I never thought just being me and showing my relationship with Joey on social media would have that effect on people. And then from the parents, I started getting messages from these kids, from teenagers who, were battling with their identity, who, were in the fitness space, who like to work out, but were suppressing their feelings and their identity because they felt like they were going to be ridiculed and attacked and bullied because of who they are. I've even gotten messages from, kids who have considered unaliving themselves. But because of my presence online and showing that a gay man can be a strong person in a loving relationship, it prevented them from that line of thinking anymore. And, it's just so that was never my intent when I was coming out. It really was for me just to be able to live who I was without having to hide and celebrate my love for this amazing man. But to see how much of an effect it actually did have on people is, I think, where my mindset started to change about how big a platform I do have and how much the things I do and the things I say can have impactful meaning on those around me.
One thing I've always loved about you, Rob, is you have a lot of advocacy, both on Instagram and just in person. Like, you're very outspoken and very clear about your beliefs. And I think something that I see often in the fitness community is kind of the commentary online around, look, all I want to do is come in and work out. I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to talk about people's sexuality. I don't want to talk about what's going on in the bedroom. Let's just work out, and that'll be that. Why is this advocacy and building the space, particularly in your affiliate, so important?
I think for me, a lot of it is changing the conversation from sex to love. I think people have a hard time distinguishing that. I mean, I kiss Joey in the middle of our gym every single day, but not once has our sex life come up in conversation, so I just think it's so interesting that when people who tend to push back against LGBTQ plus people, the first thing they see is sex. They don't see a relationship. And I always find that so interesting, and so I hate to use the word normalize, but I think by being so outspoken about my experience, about my relationship, it just helps make others feel less awkward. And listen, I don't care if people feel awkward around me. I'm still going to hold Joey's hand. I'm still going to hug him. I'm still going to kiss him. I'm still going to smack him on the ass just to have fun. I mean, as all couples do. And I think the more people can see it, I feel the more they're desensitized to it. And I don't think it should be this taboo thing. And I think, in talking about it online and in person, wherever I am, I think it's also making people realize that while, yes, we do have, well, depending on when we're talking about, we do have moderate political equalness between, the LGBTQ plus community and others, there's still this big social divide. And I think, people don't realize that still, we are attacked for who we are as individuals. Walking across the street, Joey and I have been called the F word multiple times if, we're just walking, holding hands. For those of you that are listening, the F word not being F-U-C-K. So, I think people live in these silos where they don't see it happening around them. So they assume it's not happening globally, without understanding the lived experience of LGBTQ plus people. And that's why it was so important for us to open up a gym and put up the pride flag to make sure LGBTQ plus people knew they felt safe in our space to be who they were, to not have to tone themselves down, because the fitness space is super intimidating, period. But especially for those of the LGBTQ plus community, because there's this stigma or stereotype that people automatically attach to everybody who is a part of that community. And as an LGBTQ plus person, it makes you not want to be a part of that fitness space. It makes you not want to go to that gym or meet new people, because internally you're terrified about what that person's reaction is going to be to you. So as an affiliate owner, if I can show every single person that walks through our doors who we are, why we do it, and what we're about, I know that the right people for our affiliate are going to join, they're going to stay, and they're going to, go to bat for us at every turn.
I think there's two ways to look at this. Like, what's that kind of the glass half full, half empty? Like, I look at when I grew up in the 80s to compare where we are now, and I think there's been a ton of progress made. Now, with that being said, there's still like a lot more progress that needs to be made. But how do you keep a positive outlook on what's going on, or a sense of optimism about what the future holds?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I think especially in our current political climate, it's exceedingly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to stay true in my beliefs that the good will always prevail. In my mind, it is so difficult to consistently be negative and attacking people and fighting against individuals that I feel at some point the tide has to turn and the conversations have to change. And, we are going to be able to just live how we want to, how we should be able to, without fear of persecution, and now persecution doesn't mean legally necessarily, but even, like I said, socially. Joey and I should be able to walk down the street holding hands without having to look behind our backs, to look around our shoulder to make sure, we're going to be fine and safe. And I think a lot of people don't realize that those are the things we have to do on a regular basis. We're talking about booking a vacation for this winter. And when we're looking at going overseas, we have to look at, okay, where is it not illegal to be gay? Let's just start there. These are like conversations heterosexual individuals don't have to have with themselves before they decide to go vacation somewhere. But this is something we always have to be aware of. So I think for me, kind of going back to John's point, and the reason for advocacy really is just to shed a little bit of light on what the lived everyday experiences are of LGBTQ plus people, to show that, like, yes, while we do have, marriage equality, and there are certain things, and we do have mostly the same rights as everybody else, there are still hurdles that we have to jump over that heterosexual people don't have to. And I think just like making that known and making people not necessarily understand, just make them aware, just sheds a little bit of light into what we have to go through every single day.
Yeah, I think you're spot on what you said right there at the end. People being aware, like just the exposure to others with different viewpoints, different lives, helps you better understand what they deal with. Like I never even considered, honestly, until you just said it, that you have to think about where you go on vacation. Like all I think about on vacation is where do I need sunblock 10,000, right? Like that's literally it for me. I don't ever worry about like the physical location. And as a male, like I think of all the things that I'm able to do that even women can't, like run at night, as an example. Like I have two daughters, and I tell them all the time, I'm always telling them where they should and shouldn't be past certain hours, just because they're women, and so I think the more you're around it, the more you understand that. I go to yoga occasionally. I'm not very good at it. And there's a trans woman in the class, and I've never been in yoga with a trans woman. And I've learned in the time that I've been there, one, she's more flexible than me, which makes me mad, very mad. But, it's just like, it's an exposure thing of saying, all right, like you see it on TV and you hear stories and everyone's got a hot button topic, particularly around anyone that's transgender. But when you spend an hour with somebody just sweating and working out, that is where it becomes like, you know what, I'm just getting to know this person. Like they're doing the exact same thing I am. They're a little better than me. So now I resent them. I don't care about who they are, their sexuality at this point. I'm just like, damn it. They're, they can do, down dog better than I can. And that, I think that's kind of the beautiful thing that you're building your community there, is giving people the opportunity to learn from each other. And hopefully that will turn the tide over time for those of us, like Sean mentioned, grew up in the 80s and have seen kind of a long lens of this, but want to see it progress quicker.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I said, I mean, we at our affiliate, our whole thing is just like, come in and have fun, be yourself, have fun, work out. You're going to get some sass. You're going to get some sarcasm. We're going to talk shit. But at the end of the day, we're all there for the same thing.
Why does this has been explained to me before, and it sorry, I'll tell the story before I ask a question, but I had a friend, he's on CNN right now, his name's Ryan Young, and I worked with him in Tallahassee. He was at the time was like an intern, and I remember him saying, and I can't even remember what the conversation came up, but he said, and he's black, and he said, I used to watch TV as a kid and wonder why there was no one that looked like me. And I had never heard it put that way, because that was something I took for, like, that is something that I just never had to think. All kinds of people look like me on TV. Like that was never a thing. And that blew my mind, because that was the first time in my life that I had been presented with that viewpoint. And it was like, it changed some things. Why does representation matter?
I think a really big part of it is because, back to your comment, Sean, when you were growing up, nothing seemed impossible, because you saw everybody who looked like you doing the things you thought you'd want to do.
Yeah.
You saw professional athletes, you saw sports broadcasters, you saw politicians, everybody of what you wanted to do looked like you. And that's why me being the world's strongest gay is so important, because until me, there was no gay professional strongman. So even for me, when I was combating myself about my sexuality, I didn't realize that I was possible. Mm-hmm. So having somebody that looks like you do the things that you want to do shows you that it is possible, shows you that you can reach those goals and get to those heights. And again, it's this is a buzzword that pisses a lot of people off, but it's an innate privilege that people don't understand. And again, I'm not saying privilege as a bad thing. It's just, you've had the ability to always see somebody where you could directly fill those shoes. And until you get to a point where you realize nobody who is like me is doing the thing that I want to do, you automatically tell yourself that you can't do it, that cannot be achieved. So being so unapologetic when I was competing, between the rainbow hair, the rainbow beard, the spandex, and the Instagram handle, it was really just that moment to show everybody, like, listen, my sexuality has nothing to do with how strong I can be, but it has everything to do to show people that this is possible.
Yeah, the only time I ever had to deal with something like that is I remember when I was a kid, we went and saw the Harlem Globetrotters. I thought it was the coolest thing ever, and I was like, I want to be on the Globetrotters. And my mom goes, yeah, that's not gonna happen. I'm like, why not? I can play basketball. Like, nah, you're not gonna be on.
A little different basketball.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's actually how I got into podcasting. When I started all this in 2018. I'm like, I look exactly like Sean Woodland. I can do this.
There you go. Representing the bald middle-aged man.
Yes.
Representing it well. Why did you decide to write a kid's book?
The kids book is funny. So, in 2022 is when Strong came out.
Mm-hmm.
And this all came about because in 2019, I broke the American log press record. A couple of stories were done about that. And then my co-author of Strong, Eric Rosswood, found the story. And he sent me this message and was just like, I've had this idea to write a children's book about a real life superhero. And when I saw the story about you breaking this record, I realized you are that superhero. So getting a message like that is wildly amazing. But it also made me realize, it was like, listen, and I don't take this for granted, but I've been on TV a bunch of times. And that's so cool. But there's something really special about children's books, because even as I sit in this chair, I still think back to the books that I read as a child and how impactful and meaningful those stories are. So when I got this message, I was like, oh, easy. That's a yes. Let's work on this. And I will say, writing a children's book is a process. It took 3 years to get between the manuscript and the illustrations and signing all the contracts. It was 3 years until we actually got to the point where we could publish this story. And I think we went through about 30 different versions before we got to where we landed on. And then after the story's written, then it's okay, we have to pick an illustrator. So we have to go through all these portfolios of seeing what kind of styles of illustrating do we like, what do we don't like, what do we want to lean into, what kind of illustrator do we want to do this. And the process just takes a long time. But when I got the first copy of it, it was just this surreal moment to see myself as a character in print, for this story that's going to be used to motivate children all over the world. Not just the cool thing about the story is this isn't a coming out story. This story is about me as an athlete being comfortable in who I am and using that to achieve the things I achieved in my career. Being gay is just a part of the story. So Joey is an active participant in the story, but he's the catalyst to me accepting myself and being comfortable in my own skin to then becoming a champion. And so, for me, it was just this really cool thing because the message can be extrapolated to so many different things. The center message around the story is find the people that support you in your individuality. And that is how you achieve success. And I think that can be drawn out to any facet of life, which is why I was so excited about when we took this direction of the story, that this wasn't going to be Rob's coming out story as a strongman. This was going to be Rob's story as a champion strongman. But his love for his husband was just a part of the story, not the whole story.
Have you had any unexpected challenges that came into your relationship based on having run a business together, which is much different than just being married? Like when you're running a business, things change quickly.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think I've realized how terrible of a communicator I am. And it's very it's tough because, Joey works a schedule that is, shifted a little bit earlier than mine. So, while he, I typically coach the 5 and the 6:15 a.m. classes, and then I'm off to my real job. Joey comes and participates in the 5 a.m. class, and then he has to leave for work, and then we kind of reconvene at the end of the night. So there are definitely things that like happen at the gym that, I forget to talk to him about. And then, or he does a lot of the back end, like marketing, book managing, stuff like that. Whereas I'm more just I'm the programming, the coaching side of things. So, there's definitely been challenges, I think, like with communication, but also just like with finding time for us. um Being a smaller gym, we don't have the luxury of having full-time coaches or being able to just leave for a long period of time. We have this responsibility. So that's certainly been a struggle over the past year and a half, is being able to find time for us again without letting the business get in the way of that, and realizing spending time at the gym isn't us time anymore.
Yeah, I get that. You started a new job, right? You just new big boy job.
I did. So I'm now the director of athletics at American International College. We're a Division II institution in Springfield, Massachusetts. After I had retired, it's funny because like even when I was competing, I had always had a full-time job. When I retired, I got the opportunity to go to AIC as the assistant athletic director for sports medicine and performance. So I do have my master's degree in athletic training. So in that role, I got to oversee all of athletic training and strength and conditioning. So I oversaw a staff of about seven people. And then the athletic director job came up in the spring, and I was like, you know what? I'll throw my hat in the ring, see if it works out. If it doesn't, I'm completely happy doing what I'm doing. And, I was fortunate enough to get the job, and now I, oversee a staff of over 50. I managed our entire portfolio of over 20 varsity sports and 600 student athletes. And, yeah, it's, I'm only like 3 weeks in, so I'm still in the honeymoon phase of the job.
What is the biggest challenge, do you think, for an athletic director? I kind of deal with one where I am at, and sort of peripherally, but you hear it all the time. They're the athletic director, and I'm not even sure I know what that means.
Yeah, so I will say the biggest challenge right now is the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, and knowing what's going on. At the Division II level, our athletes are still scholarship eligible. We don't have the massive funding of Division I institutions, but we do have that kind of that upper hand on Division III where we can offer scholarships. And, for us, and what I've noticed is, being an athletic director, you are the person that has to have all the answers all the time. Whether it is your field hockey team is going on a 3-hour trip for a game on a Saturday and their bus didn't show up. Or football's playing at noon and only 5 of the 6 officials showed up to the game. You are the person that has to help manage all that and figure that out, and you have to be the one with all the answers, on top of managing the entire budget, making sure that the institution is in a good place for enrollment and supporting our student athletes, making sure athletes are academically eligible to participate in athletics. Again, while managing a full staff of head coaches, assistant coaches, volunteer coaches, strength and conditioning staff, athletic trainers, and the other administrators in the athletic department. Not to mention, I'm also on the cabinet of the institution. So my direct report is the college president. So I'm directly involved with every decision that happens at the institutional level, at the highest level. So a lot, I guess, is the answer to your question, Sean.
No, I mean, because like I have a general idea about what they do. They're in charge of the athletics department. But then when you kind of drill down into what that means, like, yeah, I wouldn't know that you would need to deal with officials not showing up, or like that's. But it makes sense because you really do have your hands in everything.
Yeah, I mean, even like this week, we parted ways with one of our coaches, and now this week I'm having meetings with the athletes of that team, recruited students that are coming to college for their first time. I'm meeting with them and their families about the coaching changes, and so it's a very personal level, like boots on the ground, working hard for the day-to-day function of the athletics department. But also it's a really big fundraising job, like got to generate revenue for the college, for the athletics department. So, meeting with stakeholders and local partnerships, trying to build those up and make those connections. So it's funny because, I took this job and I still have these conversations with Joey. He's like, what do you do? I'm like, well, here's my schedule for Tuesday, and I have 13 meetings between 8:30 and 4:30, and then we have stuff going on at night, and then then I'm also planning homecoming and like all these things. So it's like I get a lot of steps in every day, so that's good. I'm always on the move, and I got a cushy office, and now the only downfall is I have to wear like a button-down shirt every day.
Yeah.
I was just about to ask if you had to put on a suit for this, because I don't think I've ever seen you in a suit or even a button-up shirt.
Oh, I look damn good in a suit, John.
I bet.
I think you should have a buttoned-up shirt, but you should cut the sleeves off, and that should be your thing.
I'm not gonna lie, we've had a heat wave up in the Northeast the past couple weeks, and it's been a thought. But I did just find like J. Crew has a performance line of dress shirts, so I've been a big fan of those, and wearing those every day. So that's helped me. So,
fantastic.
And how are you finding the time for all of this? I mean, that's a full-time gig, and then anyone that's ever come close to affiliate ownership or even coach knows that's a full-time gig. Like, how are you balancing all this?
My daily schedule is chaotic, but I think for me, it's, I'm used to having that two full-time jobs all the time, between being an athletic trainer and being a professional strongman. So for me, it's just how I'm built. I mean, I wake up every morning at 4:00. I'm at my gym by 4:30. I'm at work 8:30, and I'm there and then I get home around 5:30, and then I get the evening to spend it with Joey, where we can, reconnect about our days. I can cook dinner for us, and we just kind of get to rinse and repeat. But it's funny because like I forget that even if I'm sitting on the couch and I'm answering emails or texting members or working with prospective members, like that still does count as work, and I forget that a lot. But to me, it's just I love what I do, so it's never a burden for me to have to get a lead come in from the gym at 6:00 at night and just text with that person just to see, when can we get them through the doors and make sure this is the right place for them to get on their fitness journey. But I am good at setting boundaries with my real job. Like my employees know, like when I leave the office, you'll get a email response the next day. Unless it's an emergency, don't call me. And I'm good about setting those boundaries, which is really important when you're running a department and managing a multi-million-dollar budget and all these staffing issues that we're dealing with. So I think being able to separate myself from the job when I get home is one way to keep not only my sanity, but Joey's as well.
What's on the horizon for you? What's next?
Oh man. Honestly, it's really leaning into this new administrative role, keeping up with my jobs. And, I actually was fortunate enough to be brought on by World's Strongest Man as a commentator for CBS. So we're finishing those voiceovers and stuff like that. I was able to be at World's Strongest Man this past May doing some on cameras and everything. So it's fun to still be involved in the sport of strongman in that capacity, and still get to be around all the people I've made these really close friendships with, and still get to show my personality a little bit, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to watching those shows. Those are always great, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to work with you on occasion on some broadcasts, and you're phenomenal at it. So I'm glad that you're getting an opportunity to do it.
I've said this a bunch of times. You put a gay man in front of a mic, and amazing things happen. So,
oh man,
don't forget, Rob. You've got Hyrox Boston coming up.
John, I already told you that's homecoming weekend at AIC, so I am all out. I'm heartbroken.
I'm sure.
There. It's really eating me alive.
Stay away from the edibles. You're going to be stuck on a push. 8K of running in Boston. How the hell did I get here?
Never again. But I will say I do love our endurance classes that we do on Sundays. I do have a blast with. Everybody in the gym loves them. They're one of our highest attended classes of the week. So it is fun. It's just a different style of training, but for me, that 75 to 90 minutes of exercise is a lot when I'm like, you know what? I could just like kick my teeth in for 15 minutes and feel worse.
Yeah. Well, Rob, thanks so much for taking the time to do this, man. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and so glad that things are going so well for you. And good luck with the affiliate and the new job and all of your future endeavors, man.
Thanks, fellas. This is great. I love talking to you guys. This is awesome.
Yeah, Rob, good luck, man. Talk to you
Appreciate
soon.
it.
Next time I see you, I'll make sure I comment on how good your glutes look.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. See you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. What just a quality human being that guy is.
Oh, I love Rob. You know what? First time I met him was at the games. What year was that? 2019, maybe. It was in Madison, obviously. And he was with O'Keefe. And I saw O'Keefe from a distance, but I knew Rob visually, like I'd seen him before.
Mm-hmm.
So I go over, and he followed me at the time. So I go over and introduce myself, shake his hand, and he immediately gives me a hug.
Yeah, same here.
You know, just one of those guys, just like, hey, so good to meet you. Like, you're just so loving and nice. I was like, this is my people. I like this dude.
I think that was the first in-person interaction I had with him too. I'm not sure because I feel like I've just kind of always known him. But I think it was outside the Coliseum in Madison is the first time like I had a face-to-face interaction with him. Because I think maybe we did some stuff. I can't remember if we did some stuff for in some of his strongman competitions, but like I interviewed him or something. Like he came by the desk at the Arnold one time, and maybe that was the first time. But the first like actually like non-working thing was there. Yeah, and he's just a quality human being, man. I'm glad that there are people like that in the space, doing what they do. And yeah, man. If you ever meet someone, this is just an advice to everybody who says they don't like Rob Kearney, run from that person.
He's a great dude. I'm going to drop into his affiliate here in a few weeks. So when I go to Hyrox Boston, I'm going to go up a day early and try to have dinner with him and Joey. And nice. I hope I get to drop in the affiliate. I told him I can't work out. I just want to see it, since I'll be running that weekend. But I'm excited his affiliate's doing well. They launched he said a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And you just never know how those things are going to go. And if they're at 80 members now, that's solid.
Yeah, absolutely.
After a year and a half, like a really solid community. And he's a great coach. And, I don't know Joey that well, but I get the impression he is too. So
yeah,
it's awesome.
I'd love to take a class with Rob Kearney. But any sort of like strength movement, absolutely. That's like Yoda for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I'm just always impressed with these strongmen, how big these guys are, and the women, and the feats of strength that they do. I mean, I feel moderately strong for an old guy, and I'm not, but I feel moderately strong until I'm around one of these guys. And then I'm like, yeah, okay, no,
it's funny.
I'm not strong at all.
I go from feeling, especially at an event like the Rogue Invitational, right? I'm around CrossFit and Strongman. I go from feeling, I'm pretty big to just feeling like a wafy little bitch,
right.
I'm standing next to Lawrence Chalet, and then maybe, some of the other athletes will come into the booth. I'm like, oh my God, you guys are gigantic.
Right.
Yeah. Like it's just, yeah. So anyway.
Well, you're a big dude. What are you, 6'2"?
I'm 6'1".
Right?
6'1",
right. Yeah. You're taller than me. So you're a big dude, and particularly in the CrossFit sphere where you're standing around people that are 5'8".
That's the thing. Like I go from feeling big to like, there's no in between. Like, and I'm just a wafy little thistle of a man around these people. They're just, it's a different breed. And to hear them talk about the weights, Jerry Pritchett will be up there talking about deadlifts. Like, yeah, I'll warm up with maybe, 600, do that. I'm like, 6 for what? These are weights that you can't even fathom. And they're just talking about it like it's everyday thing. But
what's your over under on this show for the number of times we get called woke for having a conversation about LGBT?
I mean, I don't know. Who cares?
I think it's funny. I think it's fun. I love having these conversations just to hear, what other communities are like and what they're focused on. And this is kind of the counterpoint argument. I was at CrossFit Mentality last weekend doing a workout with Scott, and he'd invited me up there to do a workout with some masters athletes. Nearly killed me. It was terrible. And anyway, prior to the workout, Scott was doing the briefing at the whiteboard and had like a religious message, right? It's just part of their community. And then during the workout, they were playing contemporary Christian music, which I felt really guilty with the number of F-bombs I was dropping, listening to contemporary Christian music. But again, part of their community. And it was really special and unique and different and something I hadn't been a part of. And it was lovely. I loved it. And I feel the same way about Rob Shim. That's his community. That's what they're building. That's what their community revolves around and what's interesting for them and what they're learning from. And that's beautiful, and I hope people can start to recognize these conversations aren't woke. We're just highlighting the differences in communities and how special they all are. And that's actually one of the things I think that's really special about the CrossFit community is the gyms have the ability to create whatever they want to create, and that's where community is.
Yeah. And I think too, there is value to face-to-face in-person interactions with people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I knew people when I worked in Florida who had never met a gay person, and then we worked with some at different TV stations, and then I would watch those people interact, and I could see sort of the walls coming down and the perceptions changing. And look, if being empathetic and trying to understand other people is now woke, then fine, I'll wear that moniker. Like that's as low as the bar is now for that, then fine, call me that. I don't care. But I think it's important just to realize how much we have in common when we are different.
Yeah.
There's so much that, the contemporary Christian music thing might not be your thing. The religion thing might not be your thing, but I guarantee you, you can still go into that community and talk to those people and have so much in common and have a really good experience. And the difference isn't, everyone has differences, but I just think it's so important, especially nowadays when I think it's hilarious that we have social media. It has driven us apart. It has not brought us together. We need to have those face-to-face interactions and learn about people, directly in front of each other, not through a screen.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear from more affiliate owners on this show. I mean, I think it's something people like, Rob, and we can have Scott on and talk about his at some point. I think it's interesting to hear how they're building it. And to your point, the Christian thing maybe isn't everyone's thing, but I felt loved and accepted while I was there.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I've been at Mayhem for that event, and they had a full-on church service on Sunday before the event. Now, again, that might not be your thing, but no one there was like, you need to get the hell out right now. You were able to talk to people afterwards, and it was fine. That's the kind of stuff that I think breaks down walls and gets people closer, is understanding that if you get face to face, you get in front of somebody, you're going to realize really fast how much more you have in common. And I think the perceptions are going to change.
Well, I'm appreciative of Rob for dropping on and having the conversation with us. And particularly now that I know how busy he is.
I don't know how he does that.
Yeah, it's insane.
And then, like he mentioned, having time for a marriage, because that is usually the thing that falls by the wayside, because you have all this other stuff that has to get done to pay the bills, that all of a sudden you forget to work on, the thing that is probably the most important thing to you.
Yeah, for real. Well, this was fun, dude. Loved it. We'll have a live show coming up soon. I don't know if it'll be before or after this, but we'll do more. We'll definitely do one at least after at some point. Yeah. So excited.
There will have been or will be a live show at some point.
All right. Sounds good. Well, great seeing you again, and see you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday, my friend.